As we get started, I'd like to introduce the gentlemen up here on stage. To my left, Knicks President Steve Mills. Next to Steve, Head Coach David Fizdale. And to the far left is Knicks General Manager Scott Perry. We are now going to start with comments from Steve, Scott, and David, followed by questions from the media. So without further ado, Knicks President Steve Mills.
Good morning, everyone. We're excited to be here today. It's been a good summer for us. We hired, obviously, a new coach in David Fizdale. It's been fun for me and Scott to spend time with David, get to know him more, get to understand his basketball philosophy more, understand the kind of things that we can do together as a group to help lead this team and this organization. And we've started to see it this summer. It's really exciting for us to see how our guys have bonded on their own, and we've supported them. So they've been together all summer. They've been working out together in different locations, a lot of times in New York. Last 6 weeks, they've been together as a group in New York, and I think I was really excited yesterday. We were up at the training facility, and we looked out on the court, and we had 17 players there, including Kristaps. And so that was just a good thing to see them having fun, getting it together, and being excited about what's about to take place as we start training camp. So we feel good about the camaraderie of the group, the guys that we have together, and the feeling that they have and we have about where we're going.
Thank you, Steve. And now, General Manager Scott Perry.
Good morning to everyone. Good to see so many familiar faces again. Hopefully all of you had a good summer as well as we did. We had a very busy summer, as Steve mentioned, and to kind of drill down a little deeper into how we felt the summer went. Obviously, it began with hiring David and his coaching staff, and we're extremely pleased with how that's been going, and to bring these guys in here to carry out our culture and vision as we move forward. It's a staff that is very high in character. It's a staff that has a lot of experience, for both coaching and playing experience, and we think, and above and beyond everything else, I think all of these guys have the ability to connect with today's players. The draft was big for us this year. It's our first draft together. We really felt good about the results from our process with the draft. It yielded our first round pick and Kevin Knox from Kentucky. We felt that Kevin and Mitchell Robinson, our second round pick, they both acquitted themselves very well in the summer league this summer. They showed the athleticism. They possessed the length and versatility that is important in today's game. And they did what they were supposed to do, which you like to see in that venue, even though we know it's not the NBA regular season, but they were two players that stood out in that competition venue, and that was good for us to see. And then in terms of free agent signings, we were happy to get Mario Hezonja here, a guy that obviously I'm very familiar with because I was part of the group that drafted him in Orlando. He and Noah Vonleh, both of those guys are, former lottery picks, and as a lot of you heard me talk about last year, us being in that phase of our growth and development as a team and organization of trying to add more talent to our group. They've been around a lot this summer. They're excited about the chance. And in Mario's case, the great thing about him was that, there were other suitors for him. And a couple of playoff teams that were very interested in him and were offering him longer-term deals than what he got here. But he has a lot of trust and confidence in Coach Fizdale and our group here in the direction that he sees us taking the team, and he's betting on himself to come in here and perform well for us this year. So that was our summer, and we're looking forward to getting this year underway in the next few days.
Thank you, Scott. Head Coach David Fizdale.
Let's go. We've talked enough this summer. It's time to get training camp going. Our guys are excited. I know our staff is bouncing off the walls right now, ready to get after it. And I'm ready to go. So I'm really excited about this. And just because of what these guys just said, we had a heck of a summer. and just the commitment of our guys, getting in the gym, putting in that sweat equity. That's what's really got me ready to go.
Thanks, Coach. Now we're going to open up for questions from the media. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Microphone will be brought over to you. Please state your name and affiliation. Thank you.
Ian Begley, ESPN.com. Hey, guys. I guess you mentioned Chris Stapps was up there with the guys yesterday. Have you had a chance to sit down with them and see where he is in the rehab process? Do you have a detailed plan going forward? And is there any clearer picture on when he might return to the court?
We've sat down with Chris Stapps. We've been in contact with Chris Stapps all summer, and our guys have been back and forth with him. And we feel good about how the rehab process is going. There obviously are different steps that we have to go through in the process to see where he is, but we feel good about the direction he's going and how he's coming along.
So no clarity on when he might return after this meeting when he was here?
No, as we go through the process with him, there are a series of tests that are constantly taking place to see exactly where he is in his rehab, and as he meets certain milestones, we'll continue his rehab process, and all towards the direction of when he feels 100% comfortable and we feel 100% comfortable, and we're not taking any risk with him, then he'll be ready to come back.
Guys, it wasn't brought up on Monday. Just Joakim Noah, why wasn't he brought to training camp, and what's his status? What's the delay? What's going on with him?
The situation with Joakim is pretty much the same. Nothing has changed other than we're in constant communication with his representation. Training camp is a few days off, but the hope is that we can come to a resolution that is both advantageous for both Joakim and the Knicks, and so that's where it sits right now. Well, like I said, camp hasn't started. The camp hasn't started for us right now, so it is what it is right now, and we're comfortable in dealing with his representation, and we'll let you know once that changes.
Steve, the other day you said you're still in the patient mode where you're not going to give up anything you got to give up assets or draft picks for a player that you can get in free agency. Since then, there's been some news. I was just wondering if you wanted to reiterate that, and just what is the idea regarding trades and everything?
Our process and our view of where the season is going and where this team is going and how we're going to build this team hasn't changed since we talked about it a year ago. It hasn't changed since I talked about it 2 days ago. We're committed to not missing any steps. We're going to take this as a step-by-step process. We're focused on the guys that we have on our roster right now. How can we build them? How can we develop them? And we're just going to continue along with our plan.
Yaron Weitzman, Bleacher Report. Scott and Steve, in terms of Kristaps and he's eligible for the contract extension, is that something you guys have discussed internally? Have you discussed it with his camp? Are there plans for that?
No, we've been in contact with them throughout the summer, and obviously we're not going to share any details of those conversations, but we're in a good place with them. They know that he's an extremely important part to what we're building here and planning here. He's a star player here in New York, and the plan is to keep him here long term.
Mike Vorknoff, The Athletic. This is for Scott or for Steve. Just with Joakim saying that you guys are working towards a resolution that's good for both sides, why have you chosen to not bring him back rather than just have him here for the entire year and try to make that work the remaining 2 years, or at least this upcoming season?
I think we're comfortable with how we've gone through the process. He's comfortable. His representation is comfortable, and like I said before, that once there's a change, we'll update you on that. But we're comfortable with how the whole process and situation has been handled.
Howard Magdal with the Step Back. Steve, just to follow up on a comment you made specifically on Monday, about not trading first-round draft picks. I'm wondering if that is an organization-wide belief as you continue and complete a rebuild, or if that's a function of the current moment. And just related to that, whether that continues to hold for guys once they are drafted, or if it's just the picks ahead of time.
Well, I'm not going to discuss how we view everyone on our roster, but generally our philosophy is that we're in a building mode. We need to draft players. We need to build through the draft. We need to develop our young players. And we feel comfortable with our organizationally where we're going and what we're developing here. And we think that when it's time for us to go after free agents, we'll be a place to attract free agents, and that we shouldn't use our draft picks like that to go out and attract guys. We should focus on drafting good players. We feel comfortable with our scouting staff. We feel comfortable about our process, and we should take the time to utilize it.
So, but it's ruled out for this year.
Our plan is not to use our draft picks to as assets like that. We want to draft players and develop them. That's the plan that we laid out for our team.
Brian Mahoney from the Associated Press. David, as you hear this kind of talk, is it hard not to maybe once in a while say, can't we speed it up a little bit if there is something out there? Patience is the kind of thing that can work for the GMs, right, and the coaches.
No, it doesn't matter that way. It's you know, at the end of the day, we're together. This is a full-fledged plan that we have all come together and agreed to. We've had so many talks about the process that we want to take, the plan that we set forth, and how we want to do it the right way. We want to build it from the ground up culturally, you know, through the draft like Steve was talking about. We don't want to, you know, jump at the shiny things. You know, we want to make solid decisions and be patient with this process. And I'm a big part of that patience. And so if I get rattled or start trying to nudge these guys, I'm too big a chunk to be disrupting that process. I'm locked into developing these kids and pouring in everything I have into that right now.
And we've reiterated this when Scott came on board, and then as David came on board, we're committed to following a plan and not just shifting and pivoting because we see something that we think is attractive or might fast track something. I've seen that happen and go wrong too many times, and that's not what we're going to do.
And there's, I would add, you know, we have a core belief in that. We really believe in this philosophy and the direction that we're taking this organization, and excited about it. And obviously, in conversations with David when we were hiring, you know, development was going to be big, and we all understood the stage of where we're at, and we check each other to make sure that we stay on course.
Steve Popper from Newsday. I guess for Scott or Steve, you guys have talked about this process and sticking to it, but when you see headlines like you see yesterday, Jimmy mentioned you guys as one of the teams, does that get you feeling that you're in the direction you've talked about where you want to be an attractive spot?
Well, I can't comment on any particular player, but I mentioned it at the town hall meeting. We talk in NBA circles all the time, and we feel good that the view of the Knicks is different than it was before. That amongst players, you know, it's just there's a different vibe about how we're trying to do things. We know it's moving in the right direction, and our job is to continue that and to make sure it continues to move along in that process.
Jeff Zilgett, USA Today. David, this is for you. You visited with Kristaps this summer in Latvia. Why was it important for you to make that trip, and what did you get out of it?
Well, you know, I said this before, and this just how I am anyway. I'm going to go and spend time with every player. I just think that's really important that you meet them on their common ground. But when it comes to a guy like Kristaps, your star player, and you're taking over a franchise and trying to lead him as a coach, you better connect with that guy. And then obviously, you know, there was enough stuff from the last place that I was at that I felt like I wanted to be open and honest and share with him in a way that, you know, we can get it all out on the table if there's something there that needs to be discussed. And, you know, to my pleasant surprise, I got over there, and that was a very low part of our discussion, and most of it was about, you know, like I said, our families, you know, our vision for the team, my vision for him. you know, and a lot of eating.
This is for Coach Fizdale. Tina Cervasio, Fox 5, New York. Coach, as you said, you got to know your players over this summer. With the personnel you have and you're going to start the season with, what can we expect from training camp that starts Tuesday? The style you're going to coach them, schemes, etc.
You know, I really do think we can put a fast team on the floor. We're really athletic. Just looking at the roster without even getting into, you know, who's what, you just have a very athletic team there. And so, you know, we plan to play fast, but we're going to share the game. There's not going to be anybody that dominates the ball for us. You know, all 5 guys will be involved. Defensively, that'll be our anchor. We'll be a team that hopefully can pressure, can do some different things, from switching to trapping. You know, adding those young kids to our roster. Kevin and Mitchell, 2 really long, athletic kids that I think we can grow defensively. They fit right into that scheme. So I think you're going to see a team that's fun to watch, a tough-minded team, you know, and a very athletic, fast team.
And Scott and I feel good about just what David is saying, because we had a couple of points last year during the season. We can go back to one particular game against the Lakers that he and I just sat next to each other on the bus going to the airport and just said, our team just isn't athletic enough. We can't compete with these guys with the level of athleticism that we're putting out on the floor. And so that was a big goal of what we were trying to add to the team this summer, and for David to feel that he can play faster, that there's a high enough level of athleticism on our team to do certain things. That's what we're trying to do and build on that.
Bruce Beck, WNBC TV. Coach, how do you balance development, progress with trying to put a competitive ball club on the court this year and to try to win some games?
Well, you know, it's pretty easy, I think, from the standpoint of we have a young roster. So those guys are going to play. So, you know, it's just, I think it's what you emphasize every day in practice. You know, the environment you create, the defensive-minded coaching that we're going to put forth. You know, when we put that on the floor, I just feel like that it's going to give us a chance to compete with everybody. If we do it every single day the right way, and we build those habits, those professional championship habits every single day, and we treat each other the right way along that process, I just feel like we're going to be able to compete. Can our young guys finish off close games and win those close games? I don't know yet. You know, we're going to have to learn how to win, which a lot of young teams do. Which you know, you saw that throughout the playoffs too this year. You know, Philly was a team that had to go through some things to learn how to win those close games. And you know, what I'm hoping for is that we're in some close games, and that we're in the trench battling with these teams and fighting it out to the end, and being able to go through those situations and execute some late game stuff, and you know, hopefully they have some success in those moments and can grow from them.
This one is for Steve. Steve, you said a couple times that Jim Dolan is fully on board with your plan and what you guys want to do, and he's going to let you guys just kind of operate and let the chips fall where they may. I'm just wondering, like, that obviously hasn't always been the case here. So you've spent a lot of time around him. What do you think has changed for him and him taking this position with this group here?
Jim would prefer to operate this way. If you look at how he's operated with the Rangers, with Glenn Sather, he's stayed out of the Rangers' operations pretty much for the most of the part. He has to feel comfortable with the group that's leading the team and the process that we're going through, and he feels comfortable. We laid out a plan to him. He was very comfortable with it and gave us the assurances that as long as we follow through with our plan, if we're going to deviate from it in some big way, he wanted us to come back and check in with him, but he was going to give us the room to do this the way we laid it out.
This is one for Dave, one for Steve. Where do you see Knox as a starter this season, and Mitchell being as in part of the rotation?
Well, I see them both making an impact, but I can't guarantee no starting spots, no.
I mean, what have you seen from him since the summer league? Like, have you seen even a bigger growth?
Yeah, he's every day, this kid, because, you know, you're dealing with a 19-year-old. These guys change daily. You know, it's every day he's doing something better or different. you know, that he wasn't doing the day before. And the kid is so diligent, he's regimented. He really has a professional approach already. I think, his dad probably had a huge impact on how he approaches the game from that standpoint. So I don't feel like I'm always dealing with a 19-year-old, but I understand how 19-year-olds absorb information and then get to, where they start to grow right in front of you. And so I've really been happy with his approach and the way that he's taken on everything. Same with Mitchell Robinson. He's a kid that is, he came in the other day and worked on his turns for sprints, because he wanted to make his times when we started getting into our conditioning stuff. So he came in, and that's rarely will you have a 20-year-old that's that focused on doing things the right way and that detail-oriented. So I'm really happy with these kids. They really put in a great summer.
And I just would like to add that, that's the exciting part of watching this group come together, these young guys, because they are growing and developing not only physically on a daily basis, but mentally. And so that's the exciting part of where we're at right now, and just looking forward to evaluating and watching that process as we move forward.
Yeah, and David said something the other day to us that just a little thing, but it's a big thing. That, he said to Kevin, you had a year. You had a year at Kentucky. You've had a different set of experiences than Mitchell, who didn't go to college. So you've got to help lead him. So these are two, even though he's only 19, he's willing to try to help lead this kid. So he calls him up one night, says, hey, I'm going over to the gym. Why don't you come over with me? So they go over and work out together. Those kinds of things are good to see.
Chris Eisman from the Bergen Record. David, what do you need to see from Ntilikina early on to know that he's taking the steps that he needs to in his development and that he's on the right path?
Well, for me, I've kind of taken a different approach with Frank than everybody else wanted from Frank. I want to let Frank be who he's going to be. And so I'm just trying to develop the basic skill sets that he's going to need to become a heck of an NBA player. Can he break guys down off the dribble? Is he making his open threes? We already know the kid is an elite defender. Very few, it's hard to say that about a few 19, 20-year-olds coming into this. This kid can guard. And so offensively, I want him to get to a place where he finds himself and he's comfortable. But I'm not applying the same stuff that everybody else is putting on him, trying to make him into somebody, one of these super guards or whatever. Let's see what he turns out to be with great, just consistent, detailed player development. And we get him out there on the floor, and when the lights come on, that'll tell us everything we need to know.
Steve, kind of a two-parter here. One is this coming to camp this year easier than last year in the regards that you still had unfinished business this time last year with the Carmelo situation, and now you can totally look forward, I guess. And two, when you talk about building slowly, not skipping steps, doing things the right way, is there some confidence that in New York you can do that because the Garden's going to be filled anyway, and maybe some other teams, if they try and do that, they're not going to have the same fans, and maybe they're going to maybe lose more money than maybe the Knicks would, and there is a pressure to build quickly in those kind of markets?
Well, on the first part, yes, I feel good about coming into training camp this year better than last year. Just there's a lot more clarity in terms of what we're doing. I think philosophically we're all on the same page. We know that. So it's an exciting time for us. We feel really good to see how this is going to unfold. And, I grew up here, and I just have a different point of view. I talk to a lot of fans. I talk to people on the streets all the time. I think people here will let you rebuild. It has nothing to do with the finances of the Garden. They will let you rebuild as long as you are true to what you say and you lay out for them what you're going to do. I just, in my gut, believe New Yorkers are okay with that.
And I would like to add, as a new person coming to New York, being here 14 months, that has been my experience as walking around the city. As a visitor coming in here for years, we always felt that the New York fan base was very knowledgeable. And I, now I'm living that every day. And I think, as to Steve's point, as long as we remain consistent and diligent with our actions, that they match up with what we're saying, I think they're getting behind us, and I think they want to really get on board for this ride together as we build this thing.
Now, I'm not saying it's a bed of roses, because the guy who delivers my dry cleaning to my building didn't like our draft pick, and he made me know that right away, too. So they give us both sides of it.
Yeah, they do.
Reed Goldsmith with the Knicks Wall. David, do you feel any pressure as a first-year coach here to win as many games as possible, or has Scott and Steve given you the freedom to develop an on-court identity and establish a culture first?
The best part for me when we sat down on our interview is the first words they said to me was, "Tank, we will not ever tank." And that's what resonated with me the most in our interviews. That's the first thing they said to me is go out and try to win every game. And that made me feel great. We know where we are with our young guys. But the fact that we are preaching to them and teaching them that every game is important to win, that's what mattered to me. And, I have a different perspective on pressure. I like competition. I don't think this is a sport. I don't look at it as pressure. Raising kids with check to check, that's pressure. What I had to watch my mom do, work 2 jobs, miss my games, just to get a Christmas tree in there on Christmas with gifts, that's pressure. This is sport, and I'm a competitor.
For Coach and Scott, on Mitchell Robinson, do you guys see him starting the year, getting some seasoning down in the G League or being with the big club? And also big picture, obviously you need to develop him on the court, but off the court, how do you guys see, that term in terms of development? How do you guys want to facilitate that?
First of all, to address the off the court part, we feel like we've developed a outstanding development team in-house. That's really can connect to this young man, help educate him, help him grow. And that was one of the things when we drafted him. We recognized his physical gifts, but we also recognized he didn't, spend a year in college, and that he was going to need the backing and support to help grow as a man, like all the young guys do, but he in particular. So we're very comfortable with where we're at as an organization that we can handle that. He's a good young man who wants to be good at his craft. He wants to be a great basketball player, so that's always a positive when you're dealing with him. And then, in terms of playing, look, coaches and our philosophy is that's going to work itself out once training camp starts. Once the guy shows up, obviously he did some very good things in the summer league, some things that really you can't teach. But now he's got to transition that now to the NBA court, preseason, regular season, and again, how quickly he picks up on that is really in his hands and in the coach's hands and how they go about developing it.
We have something that it's funny. Fizz said this the other day, and Craig Robinson says it, and we live it, is that we tell everybody in our building, from the secretary to the trainer, everyone that works for us is in the player development business. At some point, wherever you touch this guy's life, either it's on the court, off the court, helping him with his bank account, helping him how he should shop, what he should eat, everybody that works for us is in the player development business. And that's how we operate on a day-to-day basis.
Chris Mannix with Yahoo. David, when you were in Memphis, you were a very open and honest guy. When you were happy about something, you talked about it. When you were frustrated, you talked about it. Does that part of the job change for you going from one of the smallest NBA markets to its biggest?
Yeah, I'm still going to have to be myself, but I think it's not necessarily about the market change as much as I just want to continue to grow as a coach. And I always self-evaluate very hard. And so no matter what, whether it's how I interview, whether it's how I coach, whether it's the decisions I make in the game, what kind of husband I am, what kind of dad, I'm hard on myself. And so, I'll just look at it as a time for me to take another step forward in my growth process. And, I'm honest, when it comes to what I think is happening. But I also think, with this being a bigger media market, there's some things that's got to stay closer to the vest.
Steve and Scott, forget about the draft picks for a second. what if you had the ability to trade players for an NBA player who might be an elite player who wants to come to New York? Would you consider something like that?
We're always going to be in the business of evaluating our roster and looking for ways to improve our team. But right now, we're focused on the guys that we have on our roster and how we can develop them and how we can come together and build the thing that the identity and the culture that we're trying to build with this group of guys. But obviously, we're a group that wants to win games and bring our players along. So we're always looking to get the team, make the team better, and find players that can develop into better players.
And that, obviously that's our job, to daily evaluate what we have. Now, as we sit here today, we haven't watched this group practice yet. So that's the exciting part of camp getting ready to start, to kind of see really what you have and how it's going to manifest itself and how these guys work together. But again, a big part of my job and Steve's job is to, obviously monitor the league and just kind of study what's out there, study our roster, and then as we move forward, if there's something that fits within our plan and it makes sense for us to do, then we would try to do so.
Mo Hamilton, The Athletic. I guess for Scott specifically, a lot of people are looking at this coming season, and I'm sure you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but a lot of people are looking at next summer as a possibility with some cap space to maybe be able to attract a couple big name free agents or such. I'm just curious to know from your perspective, how high of a priority this season will you put on either not adding money to the team's future ledger and or creating additional space to maybe attract a big name or two next summer?
Our goal this year is really to give this 18-19 team our undivided attention and watch this young group grow. You mentioned the potential for cap space. That is really just going to be a byproduct of just how the salary structures of our individual players are right now. And so we're not going to get too caught up in looking 10 months out, because we got 8 or 9 months of basketball to play and really understand and see what we have. And then when we get to that point, then we'll be in a better position to decide, what we're going to do in 19.
Hello, George Willis, New York Post. I know you guys haven't had a practice, but in what ways have you gone about, through conversation or whatever, establishing the new culture that you want?
Well, I'll say from my perspective, it started again, with us, it started in an interview. And them painting the vision of what they wanted this Knicks team to be and the organization to be, and it just fell in line. I mean, it was literally overlapped with everything I was saying and in my presentation to them of why I should be the Knicks coach. And then it just carried on from there. We interact a lot when it comes to the culture and how we're going to implement it. And the processes that they took through the draft and through hiring my staff, it was consistent with the same way they went through the process of hiring me. And so we were really diligent in bringing in the kind of people that we thought fit this plan and who could execute this plan to lay down our culture. And so once we got those pieces in place and we corralled our guys, we started laying down the bricks with our players and within the building. And it's been fun to watch everybody come together.
And I would add to you, when you talk about establishing identity and culture, it's what you do on a daily basis. Yep. It's not what we write on walls or write on pieces of paper. It's what we do on a daily basis. Communication is a big part of that culture. Expectation and accountability for us as a front office and coaching staff and the players. That we're always going to be trying to raise the bar for ourselves, and we want each and every person in our organization to maximize his or her abilities, and that's the standard that we want to set. And we believe if we do that consistently on a daily basis, we'll work towards where we want to be as an organization, and that's where we aspire to be, and that's a winning championship organization.
And I think when we sat down with David, one of the things I was impressed about is that, we, as he mentioned, building his coaching staff. But we didn't just build a coaching staff with guys that David likes. We sat down and said, okay, what are the roles and responsibilities of everybody you're adding? How are they going to fit, each one of them? How do they fit into this puzzle of how we need to develop our players and for you to coach this team? So there was no adding because this guy's a nice guy or I coached with him before. We are honest enough with each other, and that we're going to question and make sure we're building this thing the right way. And that's what we try to pride ourselves every day, is that we need to feel comfortable with ourselves and feel comfortable with our players, that we can be brutally honest with each other. And when we don't agree with something, we say we don't agree with it and we talk it out. And that's part of what we want to do as a management team, but also what we want to do in terms of how we bring our team together.
And just to follow up with that again, too, these two guys are unbelievable at, okay, what's our criteria? Like, we went to our coaching staff and said, all right, what kind of coaching staff do we need? And we just laid it out. Here's the bullet points that coincide with this culture. And like you said, it wasn't about buddy stuff. It wasn't about if I worked for people before or worked with people. None of that mattered. It was about what's the best fit for this group of guys that can move this culture forward. And we really combed through the staff, and I'm really confident with the group that we put together.
This will be the last question.
This is for Steve and Scott about Kristaps' extension. What is the philosophy there? It doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency. Is it because there's confidence that you can get it done next year? Is it that you want to see him come back on the court? And if you do it next year, you actually save cap space. So what is the philosophy there from your guys' perspective?
I'll let Scott answer that one.
Yeah, look, again, our philosophy is that we're gonna, we're connected with him. It's a long-term thing. Obviously, you mentioned the point of the cap space in July, but again, we're gonna continue to keep the dynamics of the conversation in-house, to keep the integrity of that process in order. But we just feel like we're in a real good space with him, and as well as he is with us, and we're gonna do the right thing by him and this organization.
And he'll never feel like he's not a cornerstone part of what we're trying to do here. He understands that, and we make that crystal clear to him and his representation.
Okay. Thank you, Steve, Scott, David. And thank you to everyone for joining us here today. And for those who tuned in, we look forward to seeing you throughout the season. Have a great day.